my pleasure to introduce Sekai Chandra.
Some random person at a Los Angeles pier sometime in 2017 once said, "There's never an open seat at the table, so you must bring your own chair." This is a quote that I have long been aware of, and is one that I've interpreted in many different ways throughout my life. However, the meaning behind the way that I've interpreted this quote has changed significantly throughout my time at Gilman. When I showed up to Gilman in the fall of 2018 as a new 8th grader, I had absolutely no idea of what was to come, or who I even really was as a person to begin with. Initially, I kind of sat in the back in the corner for the first part of the year. I was, at the time, perfectly fine with being the quiet kid. I didn't know anybody, so I had no reason to talk to anybody. I was fine spending time by myself studying Quizlet on my iPad and punching my desk at home over 8th grade lotteries. Feeling different and unwelcome, I barely said a word. However, little did I know that this initial silent demeanor would completely be shattered within a month of me coming to Gilman. Expedition 8. I clearly remember that not one person was super excited about spending 3 days in the middle of the West Virginia mountains. However, when we got there, something just happened. All of a sudden, I didn't feel restrained. I didn't feel the need to be quiet anymore. Maybe it was just something about the majestic view that really excited me, but regardless, I was entirely free of the persona that had dominated me for those initial weeks. I quickly gained one pretty interesting reputation in my Mr. Tully-led group, but for all of the completely wrong reasons. I could not help but resist the opportunity to throw a massive tree branch at a tree trunk, hoping it would break, or start reciting random facts about the FIFA World Cup in a weird accent. One night, I even forgot to secure my tent properly, which caused it to flood, ruining most of my clothes and making my tent mate, Maddox Bra, extremely mad at me. Most of my group mates thought my behavior was so wildly out of control that a few people decided to create a song to poke a bit of fun at my antics. They went something like this. Sekaichandra. This whole trip's about me. Me, 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 me. I throw sticks at trees. Tree. Okay, I'll spare from the rest. As if I couldn't be more out of my mind, I actually believed that this song was made because people thought I was a legend. I was utterly convinced that they thought I was the coolest kid around, and I really enjoyed that feeling. When we got back from X8, I got hooked on the game Brawl Stars and became notorious for yelling and screaming every single time something didn't go to plan, regardless if it was my fault or not. However, this feeling of popularity went to my head. I kept at these antics for quite some time, and throughout freshman year, I continued to make these weird interjections or scream over Brawl Stars simply because I noticed it made people laugh, and that made me feel happy, and that made me feel popular. And up until this point, I had essentially a complete and utter lack of actual self or social awareness, and as a result, saw absolutely no reason why I shouldn't keep at it. I wanted nothing more than to always be in the social spotlight of our grade at every single day, and I genuinely felt like I was. But the truth of the matter was, that wasn't the case at all. The popularity thing had gone in my head, and I was trying to force myself to follow my desires instead of my heart. Then, we all know what happened next. COVID. Although COVID is definitely not something any of us would ever want to experience again, it was one of the most developmentally important parts of my life. It was during this period where I developed the self-awareness and social awareness that I had been mostly lacking all this time. And all of a sudden, I understood the truth about these weird antics. I understood, finally, that the so-called Sekai Star song was not created because people thought I was the best kid in the grade. As much as I didn't want to accept it, I just knew it was true. It's in these times of trouble and mental confusion and mental conflict where the mind becomes very unstable and becomes especially prone to making bad decisions. Following in line with this notion, I made one of the worst decisions I could have possibly made. I decided that I was entirely done with that weird, crazy, loser kid 9th grader that was named Sekai Chandra, and that I would forcefully and unnaturally force myself to become a popular kid who was truthfully and genuinely at the center of attention. Not only was I rejecting the person who I really was and ignoring what my heart was trying to tell me to do, but I was simply running away from it entirely. I quickly began to force myself to change many things that I was doing in order to achieve my goal, which I was committed to achieve by any means necessary. I immediately tried to stop my crazy yelling antics, tried to cut down on Brawl Stars, and hid all of my rather unusual and non-common interests from all of my classmates, apart from my closest friends at the time, who were Caden, Simon, Jake, Sammy, Ryan, Morgan, Blue, and Shiloh, because I was genuinely afraid that some people would judge me for it and as a result not want to interact with me. I mean, to this day, I haven't met a single other person in real life who could recall endless details about random historical tornadoes when given only the year. I began forcing myself to say hello, hi, or what's up to people in the hallway that I never interacted with before, only because I wanted to make myself as well known across the school as possible. I tried to make conversation with people that I was not even good friends or even familiar with in the first place. Just because I had to have everyone know who I was. I had to achieve this goal of popularity by any means necessary. And although it never felt genuine or real or seamless in any part of the way, I had convinced myself that there was simply no other choice. I kept forcing my heart and real self into the background. The only people that I didn't make these drastic changes to were my best friends at the time, because I knew that they didn't mind all my real antics and embraced myself for who I actually was. They loved me for who I really was and welcomed me in the open arms into the Gilman community right after X8. And they made me feel far more comfortable at Gilman because they just loved all the unique things about me, which is something I'm forever grateful for. One afternoon during 10th grade, while I was hanging out with my friends in Centennial Hall, I died in Brawl Stars, got particularly angry, shouted a bit, and then proceeded to throw my phone as hard as I could at a table in Centennial Hall, which shattered it into 100 pieces. This incident caused me to, one, lie to my parents about the truth behind my phone breaking. I eventually got caught. And which is the reason why I'm telling you this story in the first place, started a rumor that I was so afraid of my parents that I actually slept at school for a week. I was genuinely terrified by this false rumor, and although I try not to show it, I was extremely afraid that it would ruin the fake, phony, and a genuine persona that I was trying to create. I was afraid that most of the grade would begin to ignore me and consider me weird, and that my friends would begin to tell others about my true self and antics. And therefore, I even thought about changing the way I interacted with my friends and tried to force my true interest in my entire real self into the rearview mirror. But thankfully, I never went through with this. But things were going way too far. I kept trying and failing miserably to make these drastic and terrible changes to my persona just to fit in, even though I remember specifically thinking to myself countless times that it just wasn't right. And then, at the start of the 11th grade year, an event occurred that caused me to entirely destroy this persona for good. It was at the fall dance, and I remember walking in, going nuts, and then just trying to throw myself into the center of things. But by this point, things had gotten so bad that I had essentially tricked myself into genuinely and idiotically believing that almost everybody would recognize and start cheering for me or something. When this obviously didn't happen, it finally hit me. That was not who I was at all. I had taken things, mentally, to a level so far away from who I really was that I never should have actually considered going there in the first place. The person who entered that 11th grade dance wasn't me. It wasn't Sekai. Heck, at that point, I'm not even sure if there was a Sekai to begin with, unless I was in the presence of my friends. Nothing I did felt genuine. Nothing I did felt right. And if I knew that I kept it, and I knew that if I kept at this, it would probably lead to disaster. I began thinking to myself about how I could really make myself me. How could I make myself feel genuine and actually do something that I cared about? How could I be the real Sekai? Then, all of a sudden, one night while I was researching a deadly twister that took 30 plus lives near Livingston, Tennessee on the evening of May 9th, 1933, it hit me. What things make me happy and interested? What activities put me into a space where my head is calm and my mind is pleased? What things genuinely make me interested and will actually excite me to keep on doing them? Then the answers began hitting me in the face. When I'm nerding out over some random obscure tornadic event in the northern forests of Russia, I'm interested. When I'm studying Olympic gold medalist swimmer Joseph Schooling's butterfly technique in every detail, or watching the World Aquatic Championships, I'm genuinely happy and interested. When I'm hanging out with my friends and winning at Brawl Stars, I'm happy. When I'm actually helping other people in a beneficial way, whether it's volunteering, making their day easier, or just making someone smile in general, I'm happy. And perhaps most importantly, when I am comfortably within the inclines of a community that I know is closest to my heart, and when I'm among the people that makes this community so unbelievably great, I'm happy. So, how do I combine these things with each other? Well, first of all, it turns out that all of the things that I mentioned so far, that was the easy part. Just don't force yourself to do anything that doesn't feel genuine, just, I guess, let it happen. One of the first things I did after that dance was, with the suggestion of my friends, to take my extremely obsessive passion for studying the weather and tie it to the community that I cared about the most. You know, maybe providing updates about local weather would be a way in which I could positively impact my community. Therefore, with the encouragement of my friends, I started the Atmospheric Sciences Club and created a weather Instagram account, where I try to post weather updates at regular intervals. When I got things right, for the first time in forever, people actually began to give me compliments in the hallway, and in the most rare and inconceivable circumstance where I screwed up the forecast, threatened to crucify me whenever I got the weather wrong. I was used to people reaching out to me in the halls because I began making myself say hi to people. But this time, I realized that the comments I was getting from people were being made because I was actually channeling my interest into something useful. I no longer felt compelled to hide my interest in weather from the community because initially, 10th grade me would have thought that people would have found it weird and people would have ignored me entirely. But instead, I just try to share it in a positive and beneficial way with the community because that's just who I am. Another one of my biggest interests is the sport of swimming. There's something about diving into a pool that just calms me, and there's something about the thrill of competition that really piques my interest. Starting last summer, I significantly began to expand, share, and grow my love for swimming because there's really no better environment to do so than in Baltimore. First of all, several tri-school students swim for the club that produced Michael Phelps. And as a result, there's no shortage of great swimmers in the area who are willing to help me get better and understand the sport and learn to love the sport more through giving me advice. For example, in the tri-school, I reached out and bonded with the great Tim Brooks, Brody Schrepfer, and the recently departed Bryce Lloyd. In addition, Bryn Mawr currently has 4 All-Americans in swimming on their team when there's only 1,000 of them in the entire country. I began to reach out to a few of them as well for tips, and I've seen quite some significant improvements this season. In addition, my swimming-related interactions have led me to connect with several other great swimmers in the Baltimore area, such as All-American backstroker Teddy McQuaid, freestyle specialist Alex Dillon, and all-around sprint talent Caden Bowers, making a couple of friends in the process. When I came back to swim this year, I finally felt like a crucial part of the team and just not an extra person for Coach Vaughn to yell at. I got to know most of the people on the team so much better and actually felt compelled to shout my lungs dead at the MIAA championships. Watching the team of Jackson Heather, Peter Skolnick, Max Kunisaki, and Tim Brooks demolish that 200 freestyle relay record brought me to tears of joy, which is something I never thought swimming would ever do for me unless it was the other way around. Unfortunately, the relay was disqualified and the record didn't stand, but that only happened after the moment was over, so let's count it. Going back to the interjections, they kind of came back. However, this time around, I wasn't doing them out to just make people laugh. They kind of just happened, I guess. Whenever I'm greeting someone that I know pretty well at a school dance, whenever my mental state is being torn apart as if it were in the direct path of a deadly tornado because I just found out that I got a 70% on my DOS test, or whenever one of my random teammates in Brawl Ball is so bad that Simon and I literally cannot believe they're at 500 trophies, I'm out. At the end of the 11th grade year, I was finally embracing myself for who I was. I was accepting who the real Sekai was. I was no longer afraid of not being the center of attention. I was no longer afraid about promoting my interest to other people besides my friends. I was no longer afraid of being myself in front of entirely new people. I was no longer afraid that someone might think I was weird or ignore me whenever I threw that Jake Bulgin kid across Mr. Shattuck's biology class. I was no longer afraid of people making fun of me for losing to the unbeatable Caden Bowers by more than 15 seconds, no matter what event it is that I raced him in. I was no longer afraid of someone judging me for stuttering when I talked with people. And I was no longer afraid of some people just making fun of me for taking some quiet time to myself every once in a while and getting lost on the internet. But instead, I was comfortable with all of these things because I was truly being myself. and the community recognized that I was doing that and took me in with open arms. I was perfectly happy with who I was for the first time in my life. And if someone didn't think the same thing, I genuinely didn't care. For the first time, I loved the fact that I was a quirky, gentle teenage boy with tremendously strong passions for swimming and weather. I loved the fact that there was both a very loud and outgoing side to myself and a very reserved and quiet side as well. I accepted that I just didn't need to be popular, and once I entered this phony demeanor and began to actually love myself for who I was, I kind of naturally just met and bonded with more people than I ever could imagine. However, there are definitely some boundaries that I've pushed that have made me feel uncomfortable and not genuine at times, but I've done well to make sure that none of these things actually change the core of who I am as a person. One thing is, well, I began going to the gym because, going to the gym is a very important part of getting good at swimming. And, well, I guess I kind of just got the discipline and have seen some increases in my muscle tone, but, that doesn't change who I am as a person. Another example is forging new friendships with people and strengthening ones that I already have. As I became more accepting of the real Sekai, I found it much easier to approach and connect with new people, establishing a network of people and strengthening the existing network that I know will be there and will have my back should I ever need them. I've also tried to force myself to reach out to teachers with homework problems and have asked other people within the weather community for radar data that I probably shouldn't have in my possession more often, because nothing happens in life if you don't try. And that's always been an issue for me. Although these changes may seem a bit big on the outside to some, at the core, I'm still me. The last and perhaps the most current expedition outside of my comfort zone is deciding to pick up vlogging. While I was working on some calculus homework in January, it hit me. Dang, there's only 4 months of school left. In 4 short months, all of these great people that have made this wonderful community and city the place that it is, and have indirectly helped me become accepting of my true self, will be ripped from me. Although this tragic and terrifying end is unavoidable, I decided to start doing something that could preserve these memories for as long as possible. I began to film several aspects of my daily life and school life through classes, trying to capture as much of the experience as possible. Let's get it right. Memories are powerful, but no memory can replay a moment as accurately as a video recording can. That way, maybe 30 years from now, maybe it'll come back up in whatever version of YouTube we're using then, and maybe I'll be laughing myself to sleep. Who knows? The memories I've made here are just too important for me to allow them to remain as just memories. And I decided that I needed to make video recordings of them just to make them right and just to make them much more authentic. If you see me walking around with my phone filming things one day, I'm probably making a vlog. Before our time together is over, I would like to say a few closing remarks. First of all, to my friends who have been with me the whole time, Simon Forthman, Morgan Fania-Tabak, Caden Lunn, Ryan Mesher, Sammy Jin, Burke McGill, and Jake Bulgin, I'm sorry for not sharing this with you earlier, and I'm eternally grateful that you always recognized me for who I always was. Without your initial support, I wouldn't even be close to where I am today. I'm terribly sorry that I totally shielded all this internal turmoil from you guys, and for that, I've been a bad friend, and I apologize dearly. Second, to Tim Brooks, Jackson Heather, Bertie Schrepfer, Jack Shee, Cooper and Riley Walters, Bryce Lloyd, Max Shunisaki, Rick, Peter and Paul Shkolnick, Logan Betke, Gabe Jerhumi, Yaroslav and Bogdan, Miles Koff, Teddy McQuaid, Alex Dillon, Grace Black, Patrick Brannon, Maggie and Harry Belbot, Joseph Schooling, Hudson Severs Riel, Cameron Shiddick, Caden Bowers, and Langston Duncan, and all of the other swimming people that have helped nurture and develop my love for the sport. Thank you so much for giving me the advice and helping me to become the fastest swimmer I can possibly be. Your support has been so inspiring to me that I'm going to try to make the best swimming documentary that I can possibly make to even partially repay you guys for what I've done. Third, to Alan Gishu, Ben Weinfeld, Matt Parker, Jamel Williams, Kelsey Lewis, the Howard Bros, Shai Cox, Justin Bonner, Rishi Bahari, Merrill Watson, Jarrell Williams, Arjun Narasimhan, Siraj Dillon, Haroon Malik, Aaron Kansavoy, Jason Sutton, Derek Sue, Wes Seba, James Gammy, Leon, Finn McClurnan, Sanjay Givargis, J-Doc, Ethan Reams, Ashlyn Daniel, Nick Lutsky, Mason Murphy Lank, and all the other incredible people in this community that I've gotten to know recently, and I've already mentioned or that I couldn't get to. I know that we may not have known each other for that long, but I'm glad to know all of y'all because our interactions have made us laugh. Have made us laugh and smile at least more than once, and have made my day as well. I wouldn't go back and change anything, ever. Going back to the quote that the random person at the Los Angeles whatever beach pier once said in June 2017, there's never an open seat at the table, so you must bring your own chair. Today, I added, it's okay to change some of the things and features of the chair, but as long as it does not change the original structure of the chair, it's okay. Thank you for your time and attention. That is all.